And without taking much of your time, I'll invite Shri J. Sai Deepak ji on the mic to begin his discussion on his books.
Namaskar. First of all, my gratitude to the organizers for getting me an opportunity to interact with the students of this great institution, started by Ramana. I think apologies are in order, but then I can't tender an apology on behalf of Vistara because the flight was delayed by an hour. But be that as it may, thank you for the patience and for the energy levels here. Over the last 72 hours, I've barely had a sleep for 6 hours at a stretch. But the moment I entered the room, seeing this audience, I think my energy levels must spike. Given the thought behind decoloniality, I'll try to keep this discussion in a dual language as much as possible. मिश्रित भाषा का उपयोग तो होगा, and fortunately since I come from Hyderabad, unfortunately I know a bit of Urdu. So, maybe Bhagyanagar as opposed to Hyderabad. And having been in Delhi for 13 years, some of the Delhi traits have managed to rub off on me as well. Basic aggression plus Delhi aggression. So that's a very different level of aggression altogether. Upar se vakil. Doesn't really help. So I'm really grateful for the audience here. How many of you are from my biradri, the legal fraternity? Ah, good, fantastic. Okay, very good. So all the Upadravis are here. I wanted to convert this into a full-blown interactive session, but given the size of the audience, I think it's going to pose a bit of trouble to the organizers. So I'll try and keep this as structured as possible. But let me take the liberty of saying let's indulge the audience for 20 minutes at the end, where apart from the questions that have been collected, to compensate for my late arrival, can we try and do that? Yeah. I'll be the moderator who asks. Rest assured, this is not a scripted show. I don't know any one of you from Adam, sorry, Manu. So I think I've already spoken enough on the scope of the book on multiple platforms. How many people have managed to follow the journey of the second book? Okay, fair enough. So the outline of the book has been succinctly captured by the gentleman who spoke before me. Perhaps I should explain the journey of why the book was written, or why the books were written, more than what the book is about. I don't see the point in giving out spoilers. You might as well buy it. I'm told that most of the books have been sold here. So around 2004, when I was at a crossroads in terms of what is it that I wanted to do after engineering. This was perhaps at the fag end of the second year of mechanical engineering. How many mechanical engineers here? Very good. So I was confused not because I was unsure of what I wanted to do, but I thought I could perhaps adopt more than one option. So it's not as if engineering was thrust upon me. I was not a reluctant engineer. It just so happens that I felt that my skill sets were bound to find better expression in a different platform altogether or through a different profession. And although aerospace engineering was something that I seriously wanted to pursue a master's in, 2004, according to me, was a turning point for a lot of people in my generation, given the political developments of that particular year. And as someone who was fairly vocal about the vichardhara that he subscribes to, which I think is fairly evident from the color of my kurta. The idea was to perhaps address the constant arrogant barb that people who subscribe to this point of view are incapable of sophisticated articulation, and they lack the grey matter needed to represent their position with clarity. And I was sick and tired of that particular allegation. I think enough is enough. And so, coupled with a lot of experience with on-campus politics, not that I was an active member, but being in the South, the cancer called Dravidianism manages to make its presence felt on campuses across the board. It's very difficult to escape its tentacles even if you don't want to. Even if you just want to focus on what you have come to the campus for, which is education, you will not be left alone. So in that sense, you get pulled into this particular controversy. And then you realize that there is no chance, there is no way in hell that you can make the decision, or you can take the decision to steer clear of it. Because even if you choose to, until you give up what is most fundamental to you, which is your identity, ye aapka peecha nahi chhodegi. So I said, if that is the case, I might as well turn around and start talking. And at that point, IIT Kharagpur had organized a paper presentation in the Industrial Engineering Department. It's called the Optima Fest. So I had gone to present my final year project. This was in 2005, late 2005. After my placements were done. And then we were told that a new program was about to be initiated at IIT Kharagpur as part of a new experiment to see if a law program with a specialization in intellectual property could be incubated in these technical institutions. And since most people who come from engineering families are bound to struggle to explain the viability of law as a choice of career to their family, to their parents. Surprisingly, banking is okay, management is okay, but law is not. You can go as far as possible from engineering, but certainly not the law. Thus far and no further seems to be the rule. So, between civil services and law, the choice was to perhaps opt for the law, for the simple reason that with my kind of candor, it is difficult to survive in the bureaucracy. And with my kind of outspoken nature, it's very difficult to do jihuzuri, which I am not capable of. So, therefore, the logical choice was to perhaps understand the architecture of the system through the legal profession, and also understand iske daab pech kya hote hain. And that's one of the reasons I made the choice. To bust a few popular myths about my choice, I don't come from a family which has a line of blue-blooded lawyers, not one bit. It's a standard southern engineering family which knows nothing beyond engineering and certainly nothing beyond mechanical engineering. We have produced only mechanical engineers. So even within engineering, the diara is very, very Seemit. That's it, nuts and bolts, period, literally. So it was very difficult to sell that program to the family. Multiple roundtable conferences happened. I was even accused of perhaps having a taste for marijuana before it became a fad on campuses. My choice of friends was questioned, and the kusangat that I was apparently roaming around with, its details and its kundali had to be looked into. And finally, it came to a point where I said, look, it's not law, it's law in an IIT. So sometimes, when the product itself is not capable of being sold on its own, you focus on the brand of the product. You say, forget the product brand, look at the house mark. And so I was hoping that that would effectively broker a deal between the family members and myself. And plus I had also told them, from here don't worry. So their entire allegation was, are you going to become a lawyer who's going to wear mismatched flip-flops, riding a Hercules cycle, carrying files around for a senior? And that's the worst possible stereotype that a southern engineer can be ever accused of. So I said, no, from here I'll directly go in-house, companies, that's what I'm interested in. But litigation is where my heart was very clearly set. So what's the point of breaking that news? I didn't lie, I just decided to postpone the disclosure of the truth. And therefore I took the decision that I will do that after I graduate. by which time most of the arrangements were done. But the reason why I chose the subject and I was vindicated in making that particular choice was the moment I entered the campus, this much was very clear, that I was going to have a blast of a time at IIT Kharagpur in the law school. Simply because of the sheer exposure to the kind of subjects the moment you enter the portals of law school you get in terms of political science, this and that. It was a very different experience altogether. And around that period, since it happens to be in Bengal, you can naturally expect politics on the campus of IIT Kharagpur as well. Which means the default color is a bit darker than the shade of my kurta. And so on a regular basis, there will be some problem or the other. A vegetarian mess which had been running for decades was forcibly shut in 2006 under a particular dispensation at the center, saying, no, this is Brahmanism at work, so there cannot be a vegetarian mess on the campus. When in fact, a lot of people who subscribe to that particular mess were not doing so not just for religious reasons, they were also doing it because that was their food choice. All they said was, this is the one mess that's been going on here for decades, why do you have to shut it? So that was my first brush with fairly organized protest on the campus, where we have to finally say, if someone had come forward with any kind of allegation of a slightly different nature and a different color, would this have been your response? And the management did not realize that the matter had been quickly elevated to a very different level altogether. And so they said, okay, let's move a step back, and that hostel was restored. This in itself is not a big issue. I think this is par for course on most campuses. The question was of the intent behind that particular interference. And that kind of interference and the intent behind that kind of interference gradually started from 2004 onwards, but from 2006 even more so, when there is a very clear intent to introduce a particular stream of thought on engineering campuses, which were predominantly either neutral from a vichardhara point of view, or which could be branded nationalistic. तो उस पर्दे को किसी भी हालत में उनको दूसरी तरफ झुकाना था. And that's how full-time undergraduate humanities programs came to be introduced from 2006 onwards. It just so happens that I happen to be the unintended counterproductive product of that particular experiment. They never wanted someone like me to come out of these institutions and through that experiment. So I hope that some people are able to relate to this particular journey. And therefore, the conscious decision that was taken after a point was that you need to be able to acquire a certain set of skills for you to confidently present a particular opinion and for you to be taken seriously, regardless of whichever vichardhara you may subscribe to. Which is to say, research and facts before opinions. Should you adopt this particular approach, there are two consequences of this. One, you will be taken much more seriously because you're not going to be seen as someone who faffs around, who just simply throws his weight around. That every statement that is being made will have a certain degree of substantiation. That's one. Two, आपके अंदर के जितने भी preconceived notions हैं, वो factual research के द्वारा अपने आप को टूटने लगते हैं. So your own position will go through a certain change. Three, you're building a narrative which is based on fact and not on propaganda, which I think is the most serious issue. So when people speak of narrative building, I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to narrative building beyond a point. Because narrative building simply means आपने दिशा भी तय कर लिया है, आपने डेस्टिनेशन भी तय कर लिया और आप उसके हिसाब से फैक्ट्स को काट पीट के आप अंदर उसमें घुसाने की कोशिश करें. That's the textbook definition of confirmation bias, which is not what any researcher is supposed to do. You allow the research to inform your opinions as much as possible. Unfortunately, humanities in this country is significantly grossit with the exact opposite approach. So if at all I am trying to present a particular narrative, it is only this. Please allow facts to breathe and for them to get a certain space in academic portals so that students and readers and audiences can form their own opinions at the end of the day. I may have a certain bias which is very clear. I may have a very clear ideological proclivity, a very clear ideological tendency which I am not going to ever shy away from. Just as any other human being is bound to have his or her own position, or maybe his or her non-binary gender positions, whatever they may be. But the strength of your position will come through not just on the basis of the conviction or the theatricality with which you present it, but on the factual edifice that you build. Uska neev kitna strong hai. The foundation needs to be rock solid. So my limited suggestion to the members of today's Sabha, regardless of whichever way your ideology tilts, perhaps try giving facts a chance and let debates start on the basis of facts as opposed to labels and stereotypes. It might help find a certain meeting ground, and it might even tell you that there is perhaps no meeting ground possible whatsoever. Because if you disagree on the basic fact and its refutability or otherwise, then clearly your intention to negotiate with the other side in good faith comes out. अगर आप एक basic तथ्य पे ही agree नहीं करना चाहते हैं, that much is clear that it's no more a good faith discussion. It's a completely bad faith argument. Having seen all of this as part of several campuses and subsequent interactions with students on let's say on major leftist campuses, I've realized that there is still some ray of hope, because fortunately opinions have not become so concrete and so solidified that it's difficult to change them. Even in the most hostile of campuses, where there have been posters plastered on walls asking me to go back, which says effectively Brahmin go back, was the plaster in most of these places, I said, doesn't matter, I'll engage with them. By the time the interaction is done, about 30% of the audience is willing to open up its mind a bit. And the ones who have always been outnumbered and who have been silent because they don't know whether a particular opinion or its expression will have a certain repercussion, उनके अंदर भी रीढ़ की हड्डी आ जाती है. So perhaps what I'm trying to convey is that I have come to this campus to perform the role of Narada Muni. I will do what I need to provoke a few thoughts, present a few provocative opinions, but with a lot of civility, without a single slip of tongue, in the hope that it presents a model worthy of, at the very least, consideration, if not emulation. I leave the choice entirely to you. Which is to say, there is nothing wrong when holding a provocative opinion. But if you hold it for its own sake, without any basis, then you're a rebel without a cause, who is perpetually angry and was constantly looking for villains to fight, which in my humble view would be the textbook definition of a woke idiot. So, I'm saying subscribe to the left, no problem. Just don't go woke. A sane left is any day easier to discuss and deal with and engage with than going hard woke. Because that position brooks no engagement, brooks no discussion, brooks no dissent, and has no interest in any kind of compromise whatsoever. So try and preserve the sanity of the discourse on this particular campus. It need not go in any particular direction fully. Let there be diversity of thought, no problems. But there must be a basic agreement on the rules of engagement between two parties. And that as a culture needs to come about from this great institution, given the legacy of the founder. That is something you must seriously consider. As a child, he was known for taking on missionaries on streets who would go about evangelizing people. That's the kind of prodigy whose legacy you've hopefully inherited. Take some of those things out when you go out of this particular institution and try and apply it in multiple places. 2, I say this with a lot of respect and humility, which goes against my nature, that Bharat is effectively standing at the cusp of a fantastic demographic dividend, provided it is in a position to use this energy in a constructive way. Woke politics will single-handedly pull down Bharat's journey. So please do consider this fact, that if you lose this particular dividend, when Japan is aging, Europe is aging, and several of these countries are aging, and Bharat has a fantastic youth demographic, if this particular time window is lost, I don't know when we will recover it again. Operate with a sense of responsibility. As someone who's made his share of mistakes both on campus and off campus, I'm not asking you to lead a sattvic life on campus. All I'm saying is, balance your indulgence with your responsibility. Find a way to come out of this place with your cultural filter intact. That would be the single biggest token of gratitude, both to the people who've sent you here and to the institution which you're a part of, which will be your alma mater. Banaras Hindu Vishwavidyalaya is truly an institution in itself, and I don't mean an institution in terms of its infrastructure, but the thought is a fantastic thought. When it was established in 1916, if you read the circumstances in which it was established and the backdrop of the movement it was a part of, please realize that it has a huge value. The kind of, legacy that you've inherited is immeasurable. So please be cognizant of that. And most importantly, learn to be unabashed and confident of your positions in terms of representing them. The first step towards making a change in the so-called narrative building exercise is confident, informed expression and vocalization of your position. You can be in a minority, that does not matter, shouldn't make a difference even one bit. If your ability to represent your position is a product of or is a function of the number of people who stand behind you or by your side, then you have zero conviction in the position on its own. You're only looking for safety in numbers. I will not stand by such cowards under any circumstances. If the single biggest message that I'm trying to present through my interactions in multiple campuses, even the most hostile of campuses, is have the guts to engage, have the confidence to present your opinion to public scrutiny, uski taiyari bhi kijiye, but never be bogged down by numbers under any circumstances. There could be a situation where the entire world is wrong and you're right. If you're confident of it, stand alone. Doesn't matter. And that message needs to be drilled into every Hindu and the Hindu Samaj. Don't look for allies, especially when you know for a fact that there are fundamental differences. Every alliance and every collaboration is only strategic in nature, but at the end of the day, you are your plan A, you are your plan B, and you are your plan C. That spirit of self-reliance is critical. Second, perhaps I can afford to say this after 14 years of experience as a Supreme Court litigator and a High Court litigator, as an engineer who's made the transition. There is not a single subject that you're not capable of mastering should you choose to surrender to it. The very publication which has managed to publish my book a few years before the release of my first book stalled the release of another book. Most people are aware of this.
That was based on Delhi riots.
Correct.
By Monica Arora.
Lady wrote that.
I didn't spell it out. Thank you for spelling it out. So I haven't created any trouble for myself with the publisher. Be that as it may, most people thought that after that they were never going to publish anything that comes from this so-called side. That hasn't happened. Because beyond a point, economics का अपना एक role होता है. Learn to use the power of economics to push your civilizational position as much as possible, because no matter what you do, the bottom line cannot be ignored. And therefore, today, after the tapasya of several people who have not got the recognition for their work, who have gone completely unrecognized during their life and time, like Sri Sitaram Goyal, Sri Ram Swaroop, and all these people, people like me are benefiting from the foundation that they have laid. So I say this with a lot of confidence and pride that I stand on the shoulders of unrecognized giants. And therefore, operate with that sense of responsibility each time you get the benefit of vocalizing your position, because a lot of people, a lot of generations passed away without ever getting this freedom. जिस पोजीशन के बारे में और जिस विचारधारा के बारे में आज आप खुल के बात कर सकते हैं, that was a completely unpopular position and a sidelined, marginalized, short-shaped, transit position for decades together. Finally, we have arrived in a position where we can confidently speak of it. I'm still saying the job is not done. There is a lot left to be done. But we can't be snubbed anymore, we can't be stifled anymore, we can't be silenced anymore. That much is clear. Now that history has given you this fantastic Overton window, आपको काल ने जो opportunity दिया है, इस अवकाश का आप पूरी तरह से सदुपयोग कीजिए. It is most important. I genuinely hope that this institution, and at the very least the people who have bothered to attend this particular session, produce subject matter experts of world-class quality, regardless of the areas that they choose. Because the one thing that I will never compromise on, I'd prefer to go with a person who is competent at what he does than a person who has a lot of commitment to the ideology but brings nothing to the table by way of value addition. Makes no sense whatsoever. So I had the opportunity to say this at Nagpur last evening, so allow me to repeat this, even if it sounds repetitive. This audience needs to know it. Those who are capable of fantastic work are being pushed in the opposite direction. And those whose hearts beat for the civilization are being deprived of their skills. So which effectively means the fantastic ideal combination of Josh and Hosh is missing. So I'm trying to ask you to blend both. Logic without conviction will never find a larger purchase, because you will never be able to make an impact on the lay audience. And conviction without logic means that the thinking section of the society will never take you seriously. Your job is to connect and act as bridges between the elites as well as the masses, because both are important. And the role played by Muslim elites and Muslim masses in a fantastic way, paving the way for the creation of Pakistan, is the saransh of the second book. And therefore my lessons to this particular audience, they come specifically from my reading of that literature of that particular period. This is very, very crucial. The masses and the elites cannot operate in silos if this particular civilization has to survive. They have to walk hand in hand, because the masses provide the muscle needed to get a job done. The elites provide the thought leadership necessary to show the direction and to deal with the international audience which is waiting to see Bharat fall. I have not come here hoping for a thunder of applause for every statement that I drop, as if I'm constantly putting out pearls of wisdom. That's not the intention here. I'm hoping to actually engage with you very seriously. And I hope that at least a fraction of my journey proves useful to you to understand how to deal with the circumstances in your own situation. That's the sole purpose of my engagement here. So take both the books seriously, not for the author. Not for the author. Take it seriously only for what it represents for the civilization, and uska मूल्यांकन आप उसके basis पे कीजिए, not on any other angle. Not for YouTube videos, not for following on Instagram, on Twitter, or any other place. That is useless. कल अगर Elon Musk ने he decides to pukofy and he says I'll shut down this thing. क्या following कहेगा following सब हो गया, 5 मिनट में सब उड़ गया. What are we talking about? Makes no difference. The question is that a country of 1.3 billion is dependent on an American billionaire to have a social platform for its own social engagements. That is what we should be focusing on. That our ability to engage with each other politically is contingent on a Westerner even today, after 75 years of independence. These are questions for you to ask and answer. So when I speak of decoloniality, it's not just in the cultural realm, it also speaks in the realm of science, it also speaks in the realm of entrepreneurship, development, whatever it may be. In that sense, it is nothing but a call for Atmanirbharta. 3. Narrative तो build होता रहेगा, ecosystem बनती रहेगी, उससे कोई फायदा नहीं होगा जब तक आप अपनी संस्कृति को डेली बेसिस पे प्रैक्टिस नहीं करते. Which means your ability to represent your position with confidence and conviction will always find itself bloodless and lifeless as long as it is not informed by anubhuti and experience. The central feature of Bharatiya Darshana is Anubhava, Anubhuti, experience, first-hand experience. If that is missing, you will never be in a position to represent it. It will only become an ego investment where you are trying to win over your friends on social media debates. But in terms of your personal growth and progress, you are bound to find nothing. Fortunately, it's not just the Friday that's important for us, every day is important for us. So you've been given a fantastic buffet of options. Plus you've inherited your own legacies from your families. Make a choice. There is no point in talking about the survival of the civilization if you do not practice the basics that are expected of you at the personal level. There cannot be a change at the macro without a change at the micro level whatsoever. Don't expect it even one bit. That's not going to happen.